Losar Tashi Delek, and welcome to Tibet Talks. I'm Ashwin Verghese of the International Campaign for Tibet. We are excited that you could join us today to celebrate Losar, the New Year festival of the Tibetan people and other peoples of the Himalayas. As you might have guessed, I am not Tibetan myself, but over the past few years, I've been blessed to take part in Losar celebrations with my Tibetan American colleagues and friends. And on today's episode of Tibet Talks, I'm pleased to be joined by our own ICT Interim Vice President, Tencho Gyatso. Tencho la, Losar Tashi Delek.
Losar Tashi Delek, Ashwin.
And Tencho and I are also fortunate to have another guest with us today who will help us explore the history, meaning, and traditions of Losar. Our guest is the first ever Tibetan Buddhist to serve on the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. And in 2018, he was unanimously elected as its chair. Our guest is also a faculty member in Human Communication Studies at Cal State Fullerton. And I should also note that he was our first ever guest on Tibet Talks just about 3 years ago. Today, we are delighted to welcome him back. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Tenzin Dorjee. Tenzin Dorjee la, Losar Tashi Delek.
Losar Tashi Delek
to all, and nice to be back. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you so much for being with us today. So Tencho la and I will have a conversation with Tenzin Dorjee la about Losar and what Losar means. But first, a few housekeeping notes for our audience. If you are watching this live, we want to hear from you. If you celebrate Losar yourself, tell us what the holiday means to you and what your favorite Losar memories are. And if you have questions about Losar, let us know, and we'll do our best to answer them live toward the end of today's show. You can post your questions and your comments in the comment section of our Facebook Live post, or you can email them to comments@savetibet.org. So please do send in your favorite Losar memories, what Losar means to you, and any questions you have about Losar, and we'll try to answer them as we get toward the end of the show. But for now, without any further ado, let's get started on our conversation. Tenzin Dorjee la, as I mentioned, you are a college professor, but my first question for you today is pretty simple. The question is, what is Losar? What is its significance for Tibetans, and what is the origin of this festival?
Thank you very much. The Losar is a Tibetan word which means just New Year. And I think Tibetans have a few other regional Losars or the New Year celebrations. But this is a particular one, and I may refer to as Tibetan National Losar, right? And, historians might have different perspectives on this. But some historians might say that this particular Losar that is celebrated across Tibet and even in the Himalaya regions, it may have started, I think, in 13th century. And for Tibetans, it really represents many things on many levels. Of course, first of all, Tibetan peoples love to party and celebrate any little things we could. And so it's perhaps one of the biggest celebrations of the year. But this also represents, Tibetan, national identity now, because we call it 2150th Tibetan Royal Year. And the way we celebrate it, it also represents Tibetan, many aspects of the culture that we're all trying to preserve, right, under the given condition, Tibetan Buddhism, religion, Tibetan language, Tibetan culture, Tibetan distinctiveness of everything. So everything you name Tibet could also be related to Losar celebration.
Thank you, Tenzin Dorjee la, for that overview. I want to ask you, what was a traditional Tibetan Losar celebration like in Tibet? Most people know we celebrate Losar for several days, and it's many regions celebrate in different ways, as you just mentioned. But traditionally, what what does Losar mean? Like, how is it celebrated?
Yes, thank you for that question. Of course, now I have to rely that on to what our older generations have told us, or what some of the historians are saying, because I myself was just born in Tibet and smuggled out as an infant to India. So I have a lot of experience celebrating Losars in India and now in the United States, but I don't have personal experience celebrating it in our homeland, Tibet. But what the elders say is that, of course, over the years, it has changed a lot. I think in the beginning, the celebration must be very, very elaborate, right? And then things have changed over the centuries. But what I remember say is that in Tibet, before Chinese invaded Tibet, the Losar celebration, goes, for 15 days until the full moon day, right, when the Milam Great Festival ends, and Tibetans go to the monasteries to watch the multi-story butter sculptures and celebrating the Great Milam Festival conclusion and the Losar. But at least, people celebrate 3 days. It looks like a must, So the first day is called the Lama's Losar, which means it is, the day that we go to receive blessings from our lamas or the gurus, and we visit monasteries. And on this first day, just maybe in the evening after you have visited the gurus, and then you can drink chang, the Tibetan sake, and sing songs and like that, but maybe not too much like drinking and dancing on the first day, perhaps. Then the second day is called the Kebu Losar, right, the King's Losar. This is the real public celebration day. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama is our everything. So it's on this day His Holiness will preside over the official public Losar celebrations, and this is where really party can go crazy, like anything. And then the third day today is the third day.
Yes.
Is the Chogyong Losar, which is the Dharma Protectors Day. So we usually go on high mountains and we fly the prayer flags, and then we thank all our Dharma protectors for doing a good job to protect us and the world. And then we just make some offerings, and we do incense offering. We toast samba in the air, and we scream, right, victory to the gods. And then we ask them, please keep doing your good job for the whole year. So at least 3 days seems to be a must. But even in exile, when I was a child, we would go for a week at least celebrating Losar. So, Losar celebrations vary, right, according to time and things like that.
Tenzin Dorjee, like I mentioned, you were the first Tibetan Buddhist to serve on the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, which was a great honor, I'm sure, for you personally, and also a wonderful sign for Tibetan Americans and Tibetan Buddhists. I want to ask you a little bit about any religious connections for Losar. Is Losar a religious holiday for Tibetans, and what connection, if any, does it have to Buddhism?
Generally speaking, Losar means New Year, and it's celebrated across Tibet and Himalayas. Even in Tibet, before Chinese came, Losar is not only celebrated by the Tibetan Buddhists, which is the largest population of Tibetans, but by Tibetan Bonbos, indigenous Tibetan religious followers, and celebrated by the Tibetan Muslims. I think mostly are Sunni Muslims located primarily in Lhasa, and they celebrate Losar too. So I think each of celebrations might differ according to our faith-based things. But in terms of cultural celebrations, we are all same. So from that point of view, Losar has tremendous religious significance. As a Tibetan Buddhist, as I mentioned earlier, the first day we start is called Lama Losar, right? So that says everything, the importance of Buddhism to Tibetan life. And then His Holiness the Dalai Lama, His Holiness Panchen Lama, and other great leaders of Tibetan Buddhism. So today we are going through a really great difficult time that, back home in Tibet, Tibetans are restricted from celebrating Losar. And especially if anything has to do with the religious significance, that's kind of curtailed down, and they don't want large gathering. Even to go to the temples to pray, which is really important for Tibetans, they couldn't do it. You are watched, by, by the cameras and surveillance everywhere. So that's very difficult. And so that's why I want to thank Secretary Blinken and Special Tibet Coordinator Uzra, and all the ambassador of the United States to China for really bringing the Losar wishes to us. And they have highlighted, what Losar means to us and how Tibetan people's unique distinctiveness, our culture, religion, language, and self-determination for Tibetans. All of those things are important. And I think Losar embodies all of those values. And that's why I think the ICT is in the forefront, to carry out all these important works. And I want to thank you also and all people who are supporting Tibet. And Ashwin, by the way, you have dedicated for Tibetan work and you are an honorary Tibetan. So.
Thank you, Tenzin Dorjee. You raised some important points because, as you mentioned, Losar connects us all in so many different ways, and it's more than just a cultural celebration. But when we talk about Losar, I want to also point out it's not just the new year, but also the end of the last year is considered a special time. And for me, one of my favorite rituals is on the 29th day of the last month of the year, we celebrate with Guduk. So we, for our viewers, it's like every Tibetan home usually gathers together, the family. We have a soup called Guduk that's made of 9 ingredients. And then that day we clean out our energy and we clear out our negative energies from the past and end the day with a Guduk. And the Guduk includes like these dough balls which have different personality traits in them and different objects in them that signify different elements, like, chili. Chili signifies you have a sharp tongue, or if you get cold, it signifies you're not so kind, you have a black heart. Sometimes, we're very straightforward in how we deal with things, but it's like a fun celebration. But that's also more than just a family ritual, right? This happens on a more public scale and more religious scale, and it's an important aspect of our culture. So could you explain a little bit more about that, Dorjee?
Yes, Tencho. Losar, we said, it's the new year. That's what we get excited about. But before Losar, a lot of preparations and many things are leading to that. So it culminates into the Losar celebration. So you're right. One of our favorite ready day to celebrate is the Guduk, the 29th of the 12th Tibetan lunar day. And we do make special dough ball soup. And we invite families and friends to share that. And some it includes many ingredients, as you mentioned, and then we have predictive balls, right? So these, are supposed to predict our personalities, represent, and so sometimes there are, interesting things people might get, and we can chuckle over that. I think one of those, things we put in that dough ball might differ sometimes. One of the things I realize is the garlic. Which has a very health benefit, but at least from Tibetan symbolism point of view, if you get garlic, you stink, you smell. So this year, I'm kind of happy what I got. So I got a cotton ball, which means, the kindness, right? Your mind is really very represents the kindness, so which is kind of interesting and good thing. Some days I get really bad ones, and so you don't want to talk about it. But religiously, you're right. It's not only just having the soup, but this is perhaps the biggest cleaning day in Tibet and in India too, that we usually take few days to take out everything inside, and we whitewash the house, and then we, dust off everything, and then we put new curtains, windows and doors and everything. So, and then we go to different monasteries. Many monasteries would do the ritual dance. Black hat dance like that. For example, in South India, Tashi Delek Monastery did that, or In Honsur, Dzongkha Monastery did that, or in Balakopi, also the Namdalling Monastery did that, or I think, or some other monasteries, they may not do the ritual dance, but they can still do the ritual cake offering. And, you're right. The biggest thing is to get rid of all the negativities and obstacles of the old year, say goodbye to them, and don't sit over that and don't worry anymore. You are going to start a new year, and then we wish that all good things will happen. And so after the Guduk is usually the New Year Eve, right? In the West, that's a big thing. You stay up whole night and you count down. But for us Tibetans, it's a busy night because we had to set up the whole Derka altars with the Tibetan deep-fried kapse cookies and all other offerings. And when I was a child, I got so excited because we get to wear new clothes, and so there's a lot of excitement. Now, of course, that excitement is gone. I'm becoming senior, but you're right. So a lot of things, before Losar, right? That things leading to it.
Yeah, Ashwin, Losar means, Lo means year and Sar means new. But sometimes colloquially we make fun of it and we say le sa because le means work and sa means collect. So it's a lot of work collected together. So we kind of sometimes jokingly say that.
Well, I could see yesterday at the State Department, it was a lot of work to actually make the celebration happen. But it was a lot of fun once we got to that part of it. So very fun to take part in that. And Tenzin Dorjee, I do want to ask you about kind of one of the darker aspects of this holiday. And you touched on this a little bit already, but I do want to bring up the fact that inside Tibet itself, the Chinese government has made it very difficult for Tibetans to celebrate this special holiday. We see reports every year of China kind of cracking down inside Tibet between Losar and March 10th, which is another important anniversary. So can you talk a little bit more about what restrictions China has placed on Losar inside Tibet? And why is it that this simple New Year's holiday, this cultural celebration, why would that feel like such a threat to such a powerful government like the government in Beijing?
That is a very important question, I think, because Losar, the way we celebrate it, what it means, it really represents Tibetan distinctiveness. And so the Communist China feels very threatened by Tibetan distinctiveness, although they claim Tibetans are among the 55 national minorities, but we are so different, and we never think we are Chinese, and they never think they are, right, Tibetans. So we are very distinct, right, nation and people, but we got invaded, and Communist China, occupying it. So that's why they put a lot of restrictions, especially the religious, celebration part. But if they let you do something now today, like, for example, crazy things is that they require the Chinese leaders' portraits, like Xi Jinping should be next to the Buddha or somewhere there, right? They don't want Dalai Lama near that, actually, right? And so it is as if like you are seeking the blessing of the Xi Jinping and the Chinese leadership, which is a crazy idea, things like that. So, I'm thinking about, I think, what was the United Nations report about 1 million Tibetan children, right, who were taken away, right? They have, been what I call de-Tibetanized, right? They try to take the whole Tibetan identity so that they even don't remember who they are. And so they have no idea about Losar celebrations. They couldn't celebrate Losar, right? That's a huge thing. They can't speak Tibetan, they can't be with their families. That's a big, huge issue. So even Tibetan families who are together, they have to keep it very low key, right? In the sense, because surveillance cameras are everywhere. And especially maybe you shouldn't receive any greeting Losars of your relatives from outside Tibet, right? Because that can put you in great life danger. Another biggest part is that for us, to be able to get the blessing of His Holiness and great lamas is essential part of Losar. But Tibetans inside Tibet cannot have that. As a matter of fact, they have, they don't recognize His Holiness among the, official, what they call the living Buddhas, but yet they want, to recognize his next reincarnation, the crazy thought, right? So all of that, Chinese are doing, try to erase Tibetan identity, and they try to Sinonize Tibetan Buddhism. So this is what we really worry about. And this is why when I served 4 years voluntarily on the United States Commission for Internationalist Freedom, my meetings with the members of the Congress and any panels I have been to or congressional hearings, these are the things I try to highlight, And and I'm glad that it was heard loud and clear right during 4 years, and the work's being continued. And this is why, again, we want to thank Secretary Blinken and Special Coordinator Dorjee and the Ambassador of the United States to China and other leaders, right, who gave us, lots of wishes. We need to keep it going. So until we can return to Tibet and we have His Holiness on the golden throne and the Tibetans all can celebrate along with all of you coming. So that will be the, the dream day. Yes.
Yes, Tenzila. And yesterday, as you mentioned, we had the honor to be at the State Department for the Losar celebration. It was in person this year and wonderfully attended by quite a number of diplomats from some of the embassies, as well as local friends and supporters of Tibet, and many of the officials from the department also had attended. Some of your former colleagues also were there, and also from the International Religious Freedom Office at the State Department. We have put together a clip from last night where Secretary Blinken offered video greetings. So we wanted to play that for us. Ashwin will play that.
On behalf of the United States, I extend my warmest wishes to all those celebrating Losar here in America, across the Himalayan region, and throughout the world. At this time of year, Tibetan families will decorate their homes, exchange gifts, and cherish time with friends and family. Fireworks will light the night sky. Tibetans everywhere will strive to embody the Buddha's teachings. The United States honors the spirit and resilience of Tibetans around the globe, and we're proud to host so many supporters of the Tibetan community at the State Department's event today. Americans believe in the rights of all people, no matter who they are or where they're born, to speak their own language, to practice their own faith. That's why we remain firm in our resolve to defend and promote the human rights of Tibetans, including efforts to preserve and pass on the community's distinct linguistic, cultural, and religious heritage. Tibetans must be able to select their religious leaders free from interference, to live without fear of repression, to practice the rich traditions, including this Losar holiday, that Tibetans have for centuries. Our Undersecretary of State, Uzra Zeya, has led our work to advance the rights and humanitarian needs of Tibetans this past year. We've made real progress to highlight Tibetan issues. But there's much more work to be done. So, during this time of celebration, a period when Tibetans believe that the impact of our individual acts of virtue are multiplied, we recommit to working alongside the global Tibetan community to support and strengthen the rights and heritage of Tibetans. May the year of the water hare bring you peace, prosperity, and longevity. Tashi Delek.
As a Tibetan and as someone who has served as an international commissioner of the International Religious Freedom Commission, how would you look at Secretary's message?
That is a very uplifting and not only just a Losar uplifting message, but to the extent I believe, and many of us do, that also represents the United States of America's official Biden administration stand on the Tibet issues. Yeah, it's not just a Losar like happy Tashi Delek, have some fun. They really highlighted what Tibetans are going through, right? The need to preserve our distinctive language, religion, culture, and all of those things, and so that therefore I've feel that the Tibet resolution there, that really is very important. And yes, I mean, during Losar, we have some fun. We should celebrate, with family and friends. But at the same time, much work needs to be done, as the Secretary Blinken said, And so I think big part of that at the moment is the Tibet resolve, issue that's going on in the Senate Congress. And I would urge everybody, the members to support that. And that would be a big gift, Losar gift to the Tibetans inside Tibet and outside Tibet. Because if we resolve the Tibet Sino issue, then, all the things that we are talking about right now, that will stop. So until then, we will highlight and fight for justice, and, Tibetan as a nation of people will survive, right? Even, let's say, each of us individuals, we don't know how long we'll live, but Tibet as a nation and people will struggle until the day we see that, Tibetans reunite and His Holiness, can preside over, as our leadership religious. Yeah.
Thank you, Tenzin Dorjee, for bringing up that piece of legislation. And that is, as you alluded to, something that ICT and our community of compassion is working very hard on right now. And do want to tell our viewers and anybody listening to this program that we do encourage you to get involved in our efforts to pass the Promoting a Resolution to the Tibet-China Conflict Act. You can learn more about the bill at our website at www.savetibet.org/occupation. You can learn more about the legislation. And please also visit www.savetibet.org/resolve-Tibet in order to sign our petition to your members of Congress to ask them to co-sponsor and support this bill. We'll include those links in the comment section of our Facebook page, but please go to those websites and take action for this very important piece of legislation. So with that said, Tenzin Dorjee, one last question for you here before we move on to the next part of the program. This is also kind of a fun question, I think. This year is the year of the water hare 2150 in the Tibetan calendar. Can you tell us why it's called that?
When the Tibetan word is chu is water and year is rabbit or hare. And so what's happening is, in the Tibetan, I'm not Tibetan medical practitioner, but in the Tibetan medical system and in the Tibetan Buddhism that I know a little bit more about, the elements, earth, water, fire, space, these are essential elements, right? Even of our body, our very existence, not only us Tibetans, the whole human species, all species, and this world existing. So basically, the environments and inhabitants within are constituted by these elements. So therefore, Tibetans, every year there is a particular element. This happens to be water this year, we highlight that. And the rabbit or the hare is the Tibetan zodiac animals, right? This is the rabbit ear, and rabbit, is a very, in my eyes, symbolizes a very peaceful animal, right? Rabbit doesn't have a claws to attack you, right? Rabbit thrives on vegetarian grass, and, we Tibetans are saying one of our communication tools to raise children is when you are with others, stay very disciplined, sit like a rabbit. Don't just running crazy everywhere, right? And listen carefully, mindfully to your teachers, to your parents and elders, And so I think rabbit is the animal in the zodiac. So we combine that together. So this year is a water rabbit year or hare year.
I thought that would be a fun question. So thank you. It was nice to hear that explanation. Thank you, Tenzin Dorjee, so much for talking with us about the history, the traditions, the meaning of Losar. And we want to transition in the second part of our program here, where we'll talk a little bit more about personal experiences with Losar. And so to do that, I am very pleased to be joined by a few other of our ICT colleagues. Please join me in welcoming ICT's Deputy Director for Chinese Outreach, Rinchen Tashi. And we will also be joined by ICT's research analyst, Tenzin Norgay. Tenzin Norgay, Rinchen Tashi, thank you both so much for being here today. I'd like to give both of you the opportunity to share what Losar means to you and what some of your favorite memories of the holiday are. So first up, Rinchen, the floor is yours. Can you please tell us what Losar means to you and what some of your favorite Losar memories are?
Okay. For me, Losar is always the long-awaited moment when I was growing up in a remote pastoral area in Tibet. It is also a time of really magic and miracle. We children dress in new chukwas. Chukwas are Tibetan clothes. and go 10 to 10 because we live in tents. Yak here made tent. So 10 to 10 and can get a lot of candies and some other gift. It is like some kind of trick or treating here. And also the first day of the Losar, early morning, we go to the river to get Garma Hyochu. Garma Hyochu means the water of under the 4-star morning. So we use that water to make the first cheer of the New Year, and also use that water to wash your hand and face. Also, another fun thing is that Losar is the birthday for everybody. If you are 9-year-old yesterday, today you are 10-year-old. So that's very fun. Losar is one of the irreplaceable cultural marks in my mind. And one more thing, the field, what field it's everything looks like field, but one unforgettable thing happened to me during Losar was that time I think I was 7 or 8 years old. The Losar morning, I go to the Yakpin. Generally, the Losar, the first day, we don't milk the Ndru means cow yak, and let the calves to enjoy all the milk from their mothers. And that morning, I went to the yak pen and tried to free the calves. Unfortunately, I was tripping over the rope which tied the calves and fell on the yak down. I was wearing a new clothes, right? But that messed up. And then what I did is I was very upset and went home crying. But that one now, think back, it can't be my favorite thing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rinchen. Very nice to hear about your personal Losar experiences. And now we will turn to our research analyst, Norgay. Norgay, as I mentioned for Rinchen, please let us know what Losar means to you and what some of your favorite Losar memories are.
Thanks, Ashwin, for the questions. Losar to me means like a time for family and the community getting together to the Tibetan heritage. It is the time for social gatherings, to eat really good food, and with your family and friends. So it's an occasion for the community to come together, to reconnect, and to strengthen our bonds. So the Losar is also the time of the year. It also means renewal and time of renewal and hope. Basically, you feel gratitude for the blessings that you had in the past year, and also seek blessings for the year. For the year to come. So the Tibetans perform a lot of religious rituals and offer prayers to the deities and the spirits to ensure a prosperous and a peaceful year ahead. In terms of memory, I think like all of us, we all have very fond memories that goes back to our childhood. This is we enjoy our the sweetest memories of Losar. It always goes back to the childhood, and it's the same for me also, because when I look back in my life, that's what the time when I had the most fun during Losar. And because as a child, I always looked forward to the day as it was like a day of unlimited fun. There was no scolding from the elders for whatever you do during the day. Yeah. So you have like in terms of that complete immunity or for your behavior. And that was, and that was very much fun. Like, and also back in the day, those days when His Holiness was much younger, and technology was rudimentary compared to today's level. In the town that I grew up in Ramsala, everyone in town would stand in line to receive direct blessing from His Holiness. And, it may take a couple of hours for one's turn to get the blessing. But then those wait was also fun. You get to see a lot of people in their finest dresses. And then, children would always find ways to play, make full use of the time. And then you also see the elders catching up of like the happenings in their life. So yeah, those days. Now, of course, things have changed a lot. His Holiness has advanced in age, and also those kind of direct blessings. It's not possible now. Way, my sweetest memories of Losar goes back to my childhood. We for whatever reason, we found that standing in line is a lot of fun. Standing in line for a couple of hours to get the turn to get the blessings.
Thanks so much, Norgay. I really appreciate you sharing those childhood memories with us. It's very sweet to hear about. Let's actually keep going with our panel here. Tencho, we will turn to you next. Can you please also tell us what Losar means for you and your favorite Losar memories?
Thanks, Ashwin. Yep. Losar, it's a special time for all of us in terms of memories. Norgay stole my story I was going to share. No, because I was thinking also back in the day, childhood memories of when the Dharamsala was really a small little town, not the size it is right now, and when all of the inhabitants of Dharamsala in those days would dress in their Losar best and come to His Holiness's residence, and everybody got the blessing, the New Year, to start the New Year with a blessing from His Holiness. So that was really special. I mean, we didn't have much in those days. And another memory, probably growing up, I grew up at Tibetan Children's Village, which is the school that my mother ran. And the Tibetan Children's Village at that time, the children were mostly orphans and semi-orphans who lost their parents or who were separated from their parents. So the school resources, we didn't have much. And on Losar, it's when, you have all these clothing that gets donated from all of the world, from the United States and others who are sent there. And for Losar, you get all the kids in the school who didn't have any place to go for their holidays. You would get a blind eye gift. So the staff would put together gifts from what had arrived. It could be toys, it could be clothing, it could be a new jacket, it could be a new pair of jeans or whatever. And each child would get a package. And everybody used to be so excited because you get the package, you look at it, and mostly it's something that doesn't fit you or doesn't. and then the bartering would start, right? Then you go and find somebody who has something that you like and you kind of barter. And it was really happy memories, even though resources were little and if anybody got a pair of blue jeans, they hit the jackpot. But that's one of the memories I thought I might share. Yeah. Mm.
Thanks, Tencho. That was very lovely to hear. I want to make a reminder here for all of you who are watching this or listening to this live. Again, please, you've heard from 3 of our guests so far today about their own personal Losar memories and their own feelings about Losar. And so we invite all of you to share with us your own Losar memories and your own feelings about this beautiful holiday. And also any questions that you might have for our guests. Please share them in the comments section of our Facebook Live post. And you can also email them to comments@savetibet.org. So please do send those in, and we'll answer them as we're getting toward the end of our program here. But before that, Tenzin Dorjee, you've been so gracious to be with us here today. And so I want to ask you as well. Please tell us about your own Losar memories and your own feelings about the meaning of the holiday.
Yeah, it was very enjoyable to listen to all the Losar stories, particularly Rinchen Tashi's whole nomadic Losar celebrations, and also Tenzin Norgay's and Tencho's back in Dharamsala. So I could connect with some of those. Some of the fondest memories as a child growing up in Balakube, the biggest Tibetan settlement, is really getting to wear new clothes and shoes. It's like a Santa Claus, like the parents will hide them somewhere. So next morning, like the Santa Claus, that's the version, right? We don't call it Santa Claus. So next morning, I know I have new set of shoes and clothing. And then Losar is the day, like, and even those days, like we celebrate at least a week, okay? That's a lot of days of parties. And you get some of the best food, not only for one time or one day, like a couple of days straight, and you don't have to study or do anything, and people are all nice, and nobody's really disciplining you somewhere as a child. So that's all fun. It's a lot of cupcake cookies and playing with your peers, friends like that. And then family reunion, right? We, like after the third day, as I said, then the invitation starts, right? You invite me to my home, I invite you to your home, all of that. And it goes for many days, right? So there's a lot of fun and a lot of dancing and singing. So those things as a child. And then when I went to Dharamsala after my high school and I joined the Institute of Buddhist Dialectics, and later I became a translator at the Tibetan Library for many years. Then one of the biggest things for us was to be able to get the blessing from His Holiness during Losar, right? Yes, like Norgay said, we can stand in the line. There can be many hours, but still it's a fun, right? We get to meet other people. We are all in the best dress, best behaviors. And then finally we get to receive the real hand blessing from His Holiness. That's like a dream come true, Now, I suppose now those things have changed, of course, because of His Holiness' advanced age and other reasons. So that's some of the things. And I think in Dharamsala still the Central Tibetan administration is shut down at least 3 days or 4 days, right? 3 days is a must. The fourth day is to recoup from drinking a lot of chang, Tibetan sake, so that you don't come to the work and you can't get things done. So get a day to recover from that, a lot of that. And now we have some experience celebrating Losar here in America, which is really slided down to the minimalist thing. So yesterday, first day, or day before yesterday, I got up 4 in the morning, did my practice usually, and then by 6, I drove with my sister to Tibetan monastery, Gandhin Shadi Tibetan Daji in Long Beach for the Losar ceremony, symbol one. And then after an hour, I drove back to my campus to teach all my classes. So my first day of Losar was teaching classes. It was a meaningful one, but not so much of a celebration and all of that, right? And then still today, I'm still at office right here, talking about Losar instead of celebrating it. We all are. So that's the paradox of life in America. We gain something, we lose something. And now we're all looking forward to the weekend Losar celebration organized by Tibetan local associations, right? Our LA TAS, Tibetan Association Southern California, celebrates on the Saturday. So that's something we look forward. So in America, the Losar has come down to, if you were lucky, take a day off like my sister did. So she had a fun all day at the monastery yesterday, but I didn't have much. But that's what we deal with it, And for Losar, for me, and many others, is just like Norgay said, like hopes and aspirations, right? People say you don't get a second chance to do anything again. Losar is every year, right? You have to redesign yourself. So hopefully we are all becoming a better human being, kinder human being, more compassionate being, because we can design ourselves to do that. And Tibetan Buddhism is the richest resource, right, for us to be able to do that. So while you are living, you are more compassionate, more kind, and His Holiness says your life is going to be happy here with everybody. And then when you die, if you die with kindness, compassion, as a believer, I think you will have a good rebirth. So good here and good hereafter, right? That's what I'm thinking about.
Thanks so much, Tenzin Dorjee. And yeah, it's interesting as you mentioned that, going through some of the details of the holiday did kind of remind me of celebrating Christmas or celebrating some other holidays that folks in the West might be a little bit more familiar with that. So thank you so much for sharing that, and really thank you to all four of you. That was really wonderful to kind of personalize the holiday and get a little bit of a deeper understanding of what it means. So thank you all for sharing that. We do want to turn now to audience questions, and I do have one question here from Andrea, and the question is, this is kind of a good way to maybe wind down the program. Is there anything else that outsiders should know about Losar from the Tibetan perspective? And Tenzin Dorjee, Tencho, Rinchen, Norgay, if any of you have any thoughts, please do let us know. What else should outsiders know about this holiday that we haven't already covered?
I'll say a few words and then I'll yield to others. Thanks for asking that question. Yeah, I mean, the Losar is a joyful celebration, no doubt, right? Parties are important, singing, dancing, eating well, and drinking, and, with moderation. All of that is fun, good. But at the same time, as we said, that the Losar has a more deeper meaning for Tibetans. And so as we highlighted earlier, Tibetans are still struggling for justice and freedom. And our unique distinctiveness is being erased, at least attempted by the Communist China back in Tibet. And so that's why those of us who are outside, so we can do whatever we can to be able to voice for Tibetans inside Tibet. And they even can celebrate Losar like we can have, right? At least we can have fun talking about it. They even can talk about it. You get into trouble. And so there are many ways. ICT is, as I said, in the forefront of advocating for Tibet justice. We have the Tibet Resolve, right? Resolution, you can support that, or we can also have the similar ones tabled in other parliaments and, around the world. And so there are many things we can do. We can encourage, Tibetans to keep our language and culture intact, especially now Tibetans have moved into the West, exiled Tibetans. So I would urge all Tibetans and friends can help us say, you should learn your language, speak, okay? You should keep your Tibetan culture going on. So that will boost up our spirit. And those supportive message from communication point of view, as a communication scholar, it really means a lot. You think you're not doing anything, but if you say, I appreciate Tibetan language, your culture, so don't let it die. So that's very important. Because by third generation, research shows that we lose our ethnic language and many things. So we look like Tibetan, but we may lose part of it. That's very unfortunate. So I would like to say, please, thank you for that question, and everybody can support us to keep it going. Back to you, Tencho and Rinchen and Tenzin Dorjee.
Norgay, Rinchen.
I don't have Professor Dorjee covered it very well, so I don't think I have anything more to add from what he has offered.
Yeah, I was just reminded that back, I think it was in 2008, when there were widespread protests all across Tibetan areas, and there were so many people arrested, and a very high level of securitization across the plateau. And in the outside, we were all so impacted by it that there was a movement then not to celebrate Losar. But I remember at that time, I was working at ICT, and we had the late Rinchen here. And Rinchen made a special call. We were having our annual, right around the time we were having our annual Tibet Lobby Day, and we had lots of Tibetans gathered here. Rinchen made a call saying that it is hard when there's things going on, but the cultural aspects of Losar, we need to continue doing that. You skip the partying and, the lighter moments because of how you feel, but do the cultural aspects because it's something important, keeping it alive in your family, with your children, with your family members. So you need that always to keep the spirit alive. So I remember he made an emotional call then, and I think that was a very heightened emotional time, and I was reminded as we were discussing this right now, so I thought I would share that.
Thanks so much, everyone, for sharing that. I think that's a good place for us to wrap up today's program. I want to thank all four of you for celebrating this Losar with us. As I mentioned, for me personally as a non-Tibetan, it's really great to be part of these celebrations with all of you. And on behalf of everyone in the audience, I want to thank you all for welcoming us into this holiday and celebrating the arrival of the Year of the Water Hare with all of us. So thank you all as well to everybody who's watching this. We wish all of you a happy and harmonious Year of the Water Hare. But before we go, I do want to mention another important date that's coming up on the Tibetan calendar. So on March 10th, 1959, the people of Tibet rose up as one to oppose China's occupation of their homeland and to call for their right to determine their own affairs. Although Chinese forces eventually crushed their movement, killing thousands in the process, the Tibetans succeeded in keeping the struggle alive, including by protecting their leader, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Now, more than 6 decades later, Tibetans continue to commemorate their national uprising every March 10th. This year, there will be demonstrations and protests around the world, including in India, Europe, and right here in Washington, D.C., where ICT's U.S. headquarters are located. We invite all of you to join us in March 10th protests this year. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to learn more. We'll have more information to share about the protest here in D.C. soon. Lastly, one other important event coming up in March that I want to mention to all of you. That is Tibet Lobby Day 2023, ICT's annual event with many other Tibet support groups and Tibetan Americans. And it's an event that brings together Tibetan Americans and Tibet supporters from around the country to the U.S. Capitol to meet with members of Congress and congressional staff to lobby for Tibet. This year, Lobby Day will focus on advancing the Promoting a Resolution to the Tibet-China Conflict Act. And as I mentioned earlier, this bill, which is also known as the #ResolveTibet Act, is a bipartisan bill that will push for renewed dialogue between Chinese leaders and Tibetan representatives. This bill states that the Tibetan people are entitled to the right of self-determination and that the United States considers the China-Tibet conflict unresolved. It refutes Beijing's false claim that Tibet has historically belonged to China since ancient times and states that the People's Republic of China has failed to meet the expectations of the United States to engage in meaningful dialogue with Tibetans. So please join us in Washington, D.C. for Tibet Lobby Day on March 27th and 28th. Registration is now open. Please visit www.tibetlobbyday.us to sign up. Again, that's www.tibetlobbyday.us. So with that, we are out of time for today's episode of Tibet Talks. Thank you again to all 4 of our wonderful guests. And thank you to everybody watching and listening for joining us for this special holiday-themed episode. We will be back next month with another episode for you to watch and listen to. Until then, again, we wish you a happy, healthy, and constructive year of the water rabbit. And as Tenzin Dorjee, our guest on this episode and our first ever guest on Tibet Talks, likes to say, stay safe, stay well, and stay active. Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ashwin. Thank you, Tenzin Dorjee.
Dorjee, thank you. This today.